Russ, hello, how are you? Now, I have to tell you, Russ, that I cannot hear you at all. Hopefully, you can hear me, but I cannot hear you. Good, fine. Well, I've got silence in my ears, which is hard to equate. And I've sound tested myself, and it all seems good with our software. But I cannot hear you. So let me talk, and hopefully, well, I'm glad that everyone can hear me. That's fine. That's good. So I will I will proceed. I have a couple of shows to talk about this week, and it's relatively quiet in August. There's not a huge amount that opens in London, in the West End, or wherever. Huge amounts of the theatre population decamp. Those that are not otherwise gainfully employed. Huge numbers of people decamp up to Edinburgh, where a lot of them are. Seem to be coming down in a week or so. But there's been a few bits and pieces that have opened, and the first one that caught my eye was it only ran for a very short period of time in a pub theatre in Covent Garden. Lovely, small, relatively new pub theatre in London's fringe theatre scene. It's called the Stage Door Theatre. It sits above the Prince of Wales pub on Drury Lane. So it's within absolute, very, very short distance of Theatre Royal Drury Lane, of the Gillian Lynn Theatre. It's smack on that crossroads, right in that heart of the Covent Garden part of London, obviously a little bit away from the Covent Garden Piazza. And the show was called when I look at my notes, I've lost the name of the show. It was I Ran with the Gang, and it is the story of Alan Longmuir, who was the original Bay City Roller. And that show caught my imagination, my desire to want to go and see it for a number of reasons. A, there was not a huge amount of theatre going on at the moment, as I've just said. And B, I've got relatively distant memories of the Bay City Rollers from my youth, and it would be interesting just to hear a little more about them. The show had been put together. It's a very affectionate, carefully crafted tribute to the band, to Alan Longmuir, by a gentleman called Liam Rudden, who's written and directed the show. It lasted for about 1 hour. It was mainly descriptive monologue given by one particular actor, a chap called Michael Carl Lewis, who plays the young Alan. And it's a story of how Longmuir went from being a plumber to starting up the band, eventually settling on the name of Bay City Rollers, and how the whole trials and tribulations of their journey from a small band to ultimately a global dominating band that was, in its time, one of the biggest bands in the world. Roller Mania was quite something. And I have to say, the show, it had not only this chappie Michael Carl Lewis, it had two fellow actors who helped him along with the story, and it wrapped up after I guess about a half an hour, 20 minutes of narrative. There was then a very affectionate photo tribute to Alan Longmuir, possibly perhaps more best kept to a more intimate family celebration or wake, possibly, than a show put on commercially. But and then there is a glorious 25 minutes sing-alonger with these three actors leading the crowd in a wonderful recreation of some of the Bay City Rollers' greatest hits. And true confession time, I might just have sung along to Bye Bye. It's Russ, I think I might have just heard you just then as well.
Well, I don't know why you couldn't. Can you hear me now?
I can now hear you loud and clear.
Well, that's marvelous. I couldn't stand the Bay City Rollers, I'll be honest with you. I thought
They speak very to be
I
fair,
never understood. Yeah, they speak highly
they
of me.
spoke very highly of you.
Got it. I never got it. I thought I just didn't get them.
You just didn't. You obviously didn't have enough tartan in your life.
I've had enough. No, I'm not going to do that gag. No, I mean the songs. We all remember them. I love Julie Voice saying, you know, we all rang with the gang and bye bye baby, bye bye. I just don't understand why they were such a global phenomenon. They were just a phenomenon, but they left me.
They were a phenomenon. Sadly, they were abused.
Oh God! Have you ever seen the documentary about their manager,
Tam Payton or Patton? I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
What a piece of work!
Despicable.
He was disgusting.
Disgusting.
He
despicable.
was the epitome of everything that is putrid and wretched and rancid about the music industry. The most awful, awful man. Dead now, and I can't say anyone's sorry to see him go. He treated them disgracefully, physically, emotionally, and financially. It was a shocker.
Absolutely. Russ, you're spot on. And Longmuir, in fact, ended his working days back as a plumber.
Yeah. I mean, they made millions. And that money disappeared, and we know where it disappeared to. And there was a wonderful documentary where finally he confronted him years later. And the guy, this Tam, whatever his name was, had no shame. No shame at all. It was awful. You really felt for these kids.
Yep.
He was an absolute crook of the first order. Terrible man.
I've got to be honest, the show, and I think it's having a short life now. Again, it's been around for a good few years, never in London before this 1 week residency last week. And I think it's currently having a little bit of a revival up in Scotland at the moment and may well come back again. It's bursting with heart. Liam Rudden has put it together. It's full of a tribute. And in fact, in the audience on that, the first night was Alan Longmuir's widow. And in fact, Les McKeown's widow as well.
Oh, yes,
so
that's right.
There was a lot of love. It was one of those rare occasions where I was bringing down the average age of the audience.
Blimey, O'Reilly.
Well, quite. And I have to say, the whole show in itself, if you looked around to those people who were up on their feet and boogieing along over the last 15 minutes, it was an absolute tribute to both HRT and hip replacement surgery. Because fair play.
That's the gag of the week. That is the gag of the week.
Fair play. I may have found it an average evening's entertainment, but I have to tell you, there were people there in that room who were on cloud nine, having a fantastic night out. And you know, who is anyone to judge?
But isn't this what you and I say, Jonathan? You know, people get very snooty about theatre. I don't know why. Theatre and art, you're allowed to be snooty about. Everything else you can't be snooty about. Some books that 3 people read and everyone says is brilliant and no one buys them. You know, it's entertainment and it's okay to just go out and be entertained. It's
absolutely
fine. You don't have to be intellectually genius.
It is,
you know,
the nature of this show, it is quite niche. If it had been put together with better technical standards, it might appeal to a wider audience. As it is, the people who are going to love it and who were loving it are those who are in adoration of the Bay City Rollers.
Yeah, who like them? They were a tip-top pop band. That's what they were. Tip-top.
Indeed. Yeah. Indeed. And to that extent, if it comes around your part of the world, and I ran with the gang, and you fancy a bit of a step back in time to the 1970s, even though I think they started their work in the 60s.
Did they?
I believe
no.
I think that was when the band first were getting themselves together, but the 70s was when they were in their heyday. So yes, that's I ran with the band, with the gang. And the other very entertaining and very lovely night at the theatre that I had this week was at the Trafalgar Theatre, just at the top end of Whitehall, right by Trafalgar Square, so not unsurprisingly, where Mariah Aitken's take on the 39 Steps has returned to London. This, of course, first opened, I think, in 2006 or thereabouts, ran for 9 years at the Criterion Theatre in Piccadilly Circus. And it is it's a quartet of actors who, between them, I was going to say single-handedly, but there are 4 of them, who, between them all, take on all the characters of Alfred Hitchcock's classic 1935 movie, The 39 Steps, which is a wonderfully ripping yarn about this this typical upper crust, jolly good middle class Englishman, Richard Hannay, back from Canada and traveling the world, and finds himself caught up after an evening at music hall with the renowned Mr. Memory, finds himself caught up in a ring of espionage and some ghastly foreign power looking to extract the secrets of Britain.
From the novel by John Buchan.
And then finds himself on the wrong end of a murder accusation where a glamorous woman finds herself stabbed in his apartment, not at the hands of Richard Hannay, of course, but by the hands of these foul foreign agents.
Boo, boo.
And Hannay is then on the run, jumps aboard the Night Express to the Highlands, and Hitchcock really put it together as a gorgeous movie. But in its day, not in any way, shape, or form a comedy. It was a thriller. Robert Donat played Richard Hannay. And for the life of me, I cannot remember many of the other cast members other than John Laurie of Dad's Army, who played
we're doomed, I tell you, doomed.
Played the highly moral crofter out in the remote Scottish Highlands that Hannay sort of seeks a little bit of refuge with. So the train goes speeding up from London to Scotland, crosses the Forth Bridge. There's a very exciting chase across the top of the train, and into the Highlands, where Hannay finds himself up against all manner of evil shenanigans as the local, some of whom are not who they appear to be, close ranks as he's trying to crack this impenetrable ring of espionage and evil deeds. The cast of 4 who make this happen are played by, Tom Byrne is the one member of the cast who stays in single character throughout the show. Tom Byrne is Richard Hannay. He is very ably supported by a young woman, Safina Ladha, I hope I pronounced that correctly, or Safina Ladha, who plays the 3 or so women with whom Richard Hannay interacts on his journey. The first woman who sadly finds herself with a knife in her back. The Crofters, indeed.
Nothing ruins your day more than that.
Yes. They're a woman who he encounters on the train, and of course the Crofter's wife in Scotland. So she's wonderful in these various roles that kick the narrative along. But even more technically boggling are 2 other actors, Eugene McCoy and Maddie Rice, who between them over the course of the evening assume dozens of characters each. As this story plays out, ranging from this Crofter, who we've referred to the various policemen, detectives, lords of the manors. Sometimes they're playing goodies, sometimes they're playing baddies. The whole thing is very, very tongue-in-cheek.
What's fun? Is it lots of fun?
It's a lot of fun.
It sounds
it's a lot of fun. And they've taken a classic absolute classic ripping yarn of a good old British story and a banging Hitchcock movie. They lob in throughout the evening a huge number of Hitchcockian references to other movies of his.
Oh, that's good.
The show is very much played for laughs, and it is looking affectionately at that stiff upper lip interwar Britain.
Wish we had some of that now.
Not off.
God,
between the First and the Second World Wars, they improvise all manner of things with some very, very simple use of props and some very imaginative stagecraft, acting, mime, physical theatre. This chappie Eugene McCoy puts himself through all sorts of challenges, including he, in fact, is rolled out at the beginning and the end of the show as the aforementioned Mr. Memory. Am I right, sir? But I have to say, all four of these actors are fabulous. It really is if you've not seen it before, get along and see it. It's only on until the end of September. I'm glad they've brought it back. It's a gorgeously imaginative piece of theatre. It started off, I think, originally, even before it came into the Criterion, I think it started off at the Kiln Theatre in Kilburn, and directed originally, as I say, by Mariah Aitken. Her work has been recreated by a director for the purposes of this production, which has been touring. So the tour is finished. Nicola Samer or Samer, I'm not quite sure again how to pronounce her surname, but she's done a very good job of capturing what this show is all about. If you're not familiar with the film, it is all a bit bonkers. If you are familiar with the film, one will love the affectionate way in which the narrative has been treated. My one grumble was they weren't able to replicate, of course, the death-defying grapple across the clock face of Big Ben. That does not make it into this cast of four's take on the 39 steps, but everything else is. They do have a very thrilling fight on the train as it hurtles across the Forth Bridge. So you'll be glued to your seat.
This absolutely sounds right up my street. I love stuff like this.
Love
it. Absolutely love it.
Did you not see it in its first time around?
No, didn't even know they'd done it.
Well, there you go. It was at the Criterion, I think, for either 6 or 9 years. It was there.
You're right. Of course it bloody was. Of course it was. By Eros, the Criterion.
Yeah, it was there for a very, very long time.
Where they've done they used to have the play that went wrong, and then the bank robbery that went wrong, and then. Yeah,
it's a great little theatre. Aside from the 39 steps, it doesn't usually have long running productions. But this one really.
Now here's some praise for you, JB.
Oh, good Lord.
No. This is from Graham Pack. We saw Fiddler on the Roof the other week and Oliver the week before. And you remember you've reviewed these for us. It's great. And I agree with Jonathan Baz and think Oliver was a better performance overall.
Well, thank you, Graham. Yes, I mean, Oliver is flawless. Firstly, the writing always was flawless to begin with. But this take on it is very, very lovely. I think it's on in Chichester for another couple of weeks. I believe it's virtually sold out in Chichester now, in fact. Wow. But back there again this week to see it again.
Are you?
Yes.
That's how much you liked it.
That's how much I liked it.
Wow. Now, the big question on everyone's lips, Jonathan Baz, what were you doing in Blackpool? For a cheeky visit, unquote.
Could have possibly comment. No, this was a long-standing birthday gift from young Master Baz, who usually organises some crazy antic or japery in which usually you tend to highlight my aging years and frailty, because last year he had me jumping off the Mittal sculpture in the Olympic Park with an abseiling.
Oh dear God!
And before that, we've zipped.
Is there a connection between his birthday gifts and your life insurance policy?
I couldn't possibly comment.
No, I know.
But on this occasion, the intention was to tackle Blackpool and all of its delights, including the big one, which is a grand roller coaster, which sadly was closed because of high winds. But it did, in fact, occur to us in the course of many hilarious moments of conversation that gusty winds would make an ideal name for a pantomime character or a drag artist. I'm not sure. Gusty winds. You can't go wrong with it. Hello, boys and girls. Hello, Gusty.
Now, when I come on stage, I want everybody in the audience to go, boys and girls, I want everyone to go, let's try it again, ladies and gentlemen. Let's try it again, boys and girls. All right. Hello, boys and girls.
Hello,
Gusty.
It works. So if anyone wants to steal that idea, royalties please to the Midday Show. I'll have my usual percentage.
Yes, that would be nice. Well, every time I did panto with the wonderful John Inman, and which I did 2 occasions, they were fabulous shows, and he was a delightful man, incredibly professional, very kind, very, very supportive, and he'd come on and he'd go, now when I come on, I go. Everybody goes, you have to go, I'm free. So, of course, as he was one of the stars of the show, there were Lionel Blair, Ruler, let's go. It was a monster show by Russ Abbott, all these people. And, of course, the whole audience, I'm free. Everyone loved it. It was just great.
Yep. You can't beat a good bit of British panto.
Yeah, that's fine.
But Blackpool, I have to say, it remains a huge amount of fun.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the gusty winds,
It's freezing up there.
Most of the other rides were still running, so we had a day of jolly japery before hitting the M6.
My main memory of Blackpool, JB, was this: when we used to be on tour, when I had the huge misfortune, the massive mistake to be in the music industry. We would tour up in Blackpool in the winter for the Christmas season, right? And it was freezing because the wind comes straight off the sea, and the gales are like crazy. I'm dressed up in that like Nanook of the North, right? And I'm looking around, and all the girls are just like wearing a belt for a skirt and a sort of little spaghetti top.
Gosh, they were dressed up then.
Yeah, they were dressed up, and the blokes are just wearing a shirt, trousers and a shirt, and I'm thinking, what? I'm like hat, scarf, gloves. I'm not kidding. We were blown to bits. And they're just like walking around like they're in Saint-Tropez in the middle of December. It's my main memory of Blackpool.
I think, to be honest, and I would say the dress code hasn't really changed.
It's when they say smart casual.
But as we walked from our Travelodge to the front, we passed rows and rows of seaside hotels, all with the no vacancies sign up in the window.
Really? That's fantastic.
So clearly, and there were a fair number of queues, even on a day that was windy and a little bit dull at times. There were still a huge number of people in the town having their summer holiday up there.
People, a lot of my pals, they love it up there. They have a huge, for whatever reason, a huge affection for Blackpool. I have zero affection for it. It's nice, it's a place, but I don't feel anything for it. Whereas other friends of mine, absolutely, I can't wait to get back to Blackpool, etc.
Yeah, I'd not been there for 40 odd years.
Wow, probably hasn't changed that much. Maybe changed.
Well, no. The big one is now open, but the Big Dipper is still there. All these classic wooden rattly roller coasters.
Oh God. Oh God, really?
Yes. Oh yes.
Oh, wooden. Jesus.
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
Old school, hardcore.
Serious. Blackpool always makes me laugh because when you watch Strictly Come Dancing, you'd think they were sending Claudia and what's the other one? Tess, to the moon or Mars on a mission. They get, only 28 weeks till we're in Blackpool. Oh, we're going to Blackpool next week. And you're thinking, you've never been to Blackpool in your life.
Well,
This is just BBC bollocks. You've never been to Blackpool. You have no excitement about going to Blackpool. The dancers do. I've actually performed in the what's it called, the Tower Ballroom, and we did a huge show up there, and it's an amazing place. I had no idea what it was like. It's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. It was a big gala night, and I was doing my stuff. Amazing structure. Really, yeah.
And I think once you're inside the ballroom, once you're inside that grand theatre, it really is. You do give them the razzle dazzle.
Yeah.
And the BBC put that on for Strictly. I mean, to be honest, you step outside and you're on that promenade, and the razzle dazzle has metamorphosed into slot machines, fish and chip shops, and shops selling Blackpool rock.
A little bit of Blackpool rock.
Lord. I didn't know you were a George Formby impersonator.
Oh yeah, I love his grills. Anyway,
is there no beginning to your talents?
Every time I cook in them, I go, turned out nice again. Can't resist that joke. I wish I could, but I just can't. How have you been? I never get the chance to ask you, now that we've dealt with all your theatrical adventures. How have you been? Well, are you feeling as agitated as I am watching the news?
No, to some extent, I try not to watch.
No, you're very, very lucky. It's very interesting, isn't it? Interesting.
I've been enjoying. To be fair, that's a good comment from Graham. Niagara Falls looks as tacky as Blackpool.
Yeah,
they're different. I mean, Niagara Falls is, of course, a lower grade version of Las Vegas. But I think tacky is...
Oh yes, of course. I always forget you can gamble there.
Yes, these places are all. But you say, Russ, talking about the news. So one of my sons took me to Blackpool. The other one of my sons is currently my other son, rather. I have two sons. My other son, currently studying in the United States, found himself invited care of the Spectator team to go to Chicago.
Wow.
And offer his own wonderfully skeptical view of the goings on at the Democrat convention.
Yeah. Oh,
so,
God.
One son was entertaining me in Blackpool, and the other son was giving me a really wonderfully skeptical view of what's going on over there. And I was sort of,
I envy you. I don't hear from my kids. I don't know what they're doing. Probably running the world or something like that. Although one of my kids, he phones me every week because he lives in Texas, right? And he doesn't have a political bone in his body. And suddenly we're at complete loggerheads.
Oh dear.
Unbelievable. I said, look, there's no point in discussing this. So I don't want to row. So let's just talk about how you are and how's the weather and how's your job and, how's Texas? I don't want to get into... I couldn't believe it. It's absolutely fascinating. He has a really, I won't say what, all right? He has a very, very stressful, very high-powered job reporting into some very well-known people. And he thinks Kamala Harris is fantastic. And I'm going, are we watching different things? Are we watching different shows? Are we watching different interviews? It's quite amazing.
I think your wisest words of some 30 seconds or a minute ago were, if you spot a difference of political opinion in the family, best really to reverse out of that cul-de-sac of a conversation.
Oh, God.
Because
it goes nowhere. It goes absolutely nowhere. There's just no point. Just no point. So I just go, how is everything? Been to any good barbecues recently? How's the weather?
No, some things don't mix, and sadly, I will observe. I think certainly the last decade, maybe a bit more. Certainly the last few years really have seen polarizations in the culture.
Oh, geez, I mean, it's it's really interesting. But I must let you go. I know. When Phil's on, we have these conversations, and when Neil's on, Neil doesn't follow the news at all, which is why he's very happy. He's always jolly. Phil and I do follow the news and are not particularly happy. I do agree Putin will be and so will they in Beijing as well. They must be just thinking every day's Christmas. Jonathan Baz, bless you for that. Thank you for the recommendations. I'm going to go and see the 39 Steps because that sounds lots of fun.
It's a good night out. It's a fun night out at the theatre, without doubt. Always a pleasure, Russ.
And never a chore. The wonderful Mr. Jonathan Baz.
Bye-bye.
He's great. Love it. He's always on point. I didn't know the 39 Steps was back on because I don't drive in London anymore. I refuse to give that man my 15 quid. So I just won't. I'm hoping Chantal Rickards is going to join us, but I can't see a picture. I have sent the link. There she is. Ladies and gentlemen, we know her. We love her. She's in a new location, which is both exciting and blurred, but I don't know where it is. It's fabulous. Can you hear me, Chantal? Over.
Well, I'm hoping you can hear me because I couldn't hear you at the beginning of the show. Good.
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
And I hope I'm not too blurred, or maybe I am.
You kind of are. Well, you see, here's the thing, Chantas, with my eyesight these days, who the hell knows? It could be perfectly crystal clear HD vision, and I would still think, well, that's crap. I can't really like that. So who knows? No, you look. Where are you? Somewhere exciting.
Well, I'm in France. I'm in a very quiet little bit of France. Not
Paris.
many people here. No, not Paris.
You're
I'm
the
a bit of an urban. Yeah, I'm
8 million arrondissement.
No arrondissement here. I am in the Aveyron, which I think, from memory, is the least populous or least populated part of France.
Well, you know the plus side of that is, don't you? Fewer French. Which can only be a good thing.
Well,
where is it? North, south? I don't know where it is. My French geography is
so difficult. It's about 200 miles north of the Côte d'Azur.
Oh, okay.
And about 70 miles south of Toulouse.
Well, to be honest, that's a hell of a long walk to the beach.
It's a lot. Well, yes, it's a long walk to the beach.
400 miles a day.
Yeah, it's a close walk to somewhere, to the Lot River. So we're near the valley of the Lot. Does that mean anything? Doesn't mean anything.
If you turn round, hang on, for God's sake, be careful. If you turn round, you turn into a pillar of salt.
Yeah, very possibly. Very possibly.
That's all I know. Yeah, how cool is that?
Yeah, I know several people who can stare at me long enough to turn me into a pillar of salt, but I won't name
God!
names.
Well, you've worked with most of them. Jeez. So bless you for joining us on your holiday. How sweet. That's so kind.
Not at all.
I tell you what I'm envious of, the beautiful, beautiful French sunshine coming through the French windows. No pun intended.
It's warm and sunny. Yeah. And apparently, according to the Gardien, the local Gardien who looks after the house that we're in, it's the best week of the summer. So we've happened to have picked a good week for a small family holiday, which is lovely.
How smashing. Are you in it's only because I haven't been away anywhere for 6 weeks, 6 years, anywhere.
No.
6 years. 6 years. Is it like a village? Is it like a little town?
Well,
what's the deal?
We are in a hamlet that comprises of 2 properties. Literally 2 properties. So if we want to walk down to the nearest village, it's about a 25-minute walk to go and get the croissants at breakfast time.
That's no good.
No, that's no good. And it's
That's
about a
50
20-minute. Yeah, it's about a 20-minute walk up the hillside to get to the very, very top of the escarpment, so that you can just see everything everywhere all around you for about 30 miles. So the views are absolutely astonishing.
That's great.
Yeah.
How smashing is that?
No, it's good. It's good. You should get away. You know, you can get in your little car.
I'm not allowed. I actually am not allowed to fly at the moment. So I'm waiting for results of something, and I've been told I can't fly anywhere. So there we are. Not allowed to fly.
There's always maybe you and let's go and do a day trip to Boulogne next
I would do a
the week
day
after.
trip. I would do a day trip to Croydon at the moment. I was Jesus Christ. Anyway, yeah, it does drive you mad. You forget what it's like to be abroad. It was nice. Now, have you had any chance whatsoever to watch any TV? Or
Well,
you
I
probably
have, but
haven't.
I've watched a lot of television, most of which I won't talk about because it's
Oh.
been coming from Chicago, and it's of
Oh.
the convention variety.
Christ's sake! All right, no, we can get into it. By
No,
the
but
way,
actually,
I would like.
on an
Can I
interest, well,
pay tribute? Can I just pay tribute?
Yeah.
Now, the name has gone straight out of my head, and that is so embarrassing. The lady who wrote much of the Father Brown series,
Yes,
who
can't remember.
created Shakespeare and Hathaway, which I really, really like, who was also did the Sister Boniface, which I love, passed away in her 50s, I believe. And she was a huge talent. I'm so embarrassed I've forgotten her name.
Well, I can't think
I'm
of
going
it
to
either.
look it up while you're speaking. I'm going to look it up right now.
Right. Well, what I was going to say on a slightly less contentious note is that I've been interested in watching the stuff from Chicago, not only because, politically I'm quite interested in what they've got to say, but actually it's show business.
Oh, it's complete show business.
Yeah,
It's
and of course
show
I'm fascinated by show business. I'm fascinated by how they put the thing together, what the camera angles are, who comes on after who, how the whole day and the several days that they are there are formed as a piece of theatre, because it is theatre. There's interactivity with the crowd in that the crowd is there to whoop and holler when they're supposed to whoop and holler. But actually, they sit there for 3 or 4 days just listening to one person after another. Nothing actually gets done, as it were, which is fascinating in itself. But one of my writers, my original writers on Through the Keyhole from 1,000 years ago, which I think our regulars will know I used to be the producer and director of, was a writer for Margaret Thatcher, clearly our Prime Minister of yore. And it was very interesting talking to him about how he would write for her, because I knew him as a gag writer, but clearly, Margaret Thatcher wasn't delivering many gags. She
not
did
many.
Yeah.
not great. Her show at the Edinburgh Fringe was quite serious. I'll be up.
But very occasionally he was allowed to put in something that was sort of, not far off being dry wit, like the lady's not for turning, which I think was, a clever line, and we all still remember that. I mean, it's sort of, this is going back 40 years and we still remember that line. So it was sort of interesting watching all the speeches, the key speeches one by one, to see how the scriptwriters had actually worked their magic. Because, of course, without breaking the spell, clearly these people aren't sitting down and writing their own speeches. They've got a team of people and a lead writer who will be writing for them. And I most enjoyed in The West Wing years ago the character that was played by Rob Lowe, because he was the chief scriptwriter for the president. And it's it's an interesting job, but I just love to see how they craft these pieces of word magic, and just to see how they land
word
on the
salad,
audience.
I think there's actually.
Well, word salad could be word salad.
Holy
or word magic.
God. What fascinated me, I was thinking about this. You don't hear one policy.
Yeah. They're all a bit policy light.
3 days of bullshit.
Yeah.
And who, by the way, I saw My Perfect Job today.
Oh, what was it?
No,
Have
no,
you
no.
applied?
Well, it's a little late. I'll tell you what it is. The Democratic convention has finished, right? And today I saw footage of My Perfect Job popping all the tens of thousands of balloons, because they have to turn it back into a sports stadium.
Yeah.
And there's tens of thousands of balloons which have been inflated. So they have a team going around with pins. Oh, yeah. And you pop it. How great would that be? Just popping all these balloons. I'd love to do that. It's great.
That's astonishing.
Yeah.
I never really thought of that.
Don't let me near bubble pack.
I think it would have been a bit quicker if you'd had a flamethrower and just walked around the room with a flamethrower.
I would have liked to have had a flamethrower when half the speakers were on the stage. Jesus Christ. I think there's nothing better than multi-millionaires with 3 homes and private jets and helicopters telling you how tough their life is. What a load of crap. And dragging out Bill Clinton. Unbelievable. Dragging him out. But what fascinated me 3 days of this utter rhetoric and lies and U-turns and garbage, and not one policy. The only policy is we hate Donald Trump. Donald Trump's Hitler. Donald Trump's the worst thing since the Black Plague. That's the policy.
Yeah.
Not a policy. Let me ask you this. We've both lived in America, all right? We have different political views, but we've both lived in America and both had a lot of friends out there, etc. I thought the speeches were so divisive. That's what I thought was what I came away was so horribly divisive and just increased this awful polarization. How did you feel?
Well, what I would say is, depending on which channels you're watching, that the left would say exactly the same of the right as the right say of the left, to be as dispassionate and as middle of the road as I can possibly be. They are divisive. I mean, well, they are divided, I think is the thing to say. They are a nation divided at the moment.
Awful.
And there seems to be no middle ground at all.
None.
And they've got themselves into a mess. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next 3 to 4 months.
It'll be horrible. It'll
that
be
was
horrible.
a political answer that wasn't really
No,
an
it's very,
answer.
very nicely put. I can't argue with that because Tuesday, November the 5th is election day over there, right? Whoever wins, and I have no idea any more than anyone really does, the losing side will go berserk.
Yeah, well, I know that is your fear, but
it is my fear. And I think it's a not irrational fear. If Trump wins, then the left will burn America to the ground. They'll burn the cities. And if I was going to say Biden, but he's probably in a coma somewhere. If Harris and that bizarre Waltz man, if they win, then God knows. I don't know.
Yeah.
Horrible.
I'm hoping that sense will prevail, because I think the essence of people is that there is good there. And I think if they can find good, that they will. And also, people don't necessarily want to fight. Most people want to live in a peaceful world, not in a turbulent world. It's exhausting living in a turbulent world.
It is exhausting. The last 5 weeks since Starmer took over, reversed all the policies, having conned everybody. It's just, not that I'm saying the Conservatives were dreadful. They had 13 years to sort stuff out and sat on their backsides. It's been horrible. It's been horrible. We're a tiny microcosm of America. You know, don't even think we fit into Texas. So it's just,
No, indeed, but we are still the 5th largest economy in the world, and that means something. I mean, I know that California is the 8th largest economy in the world, but it's still, we are still an important country in many ways, even though we've dwindled a bit in some people's eyes. Anyway, enough of this, because people did not tune in.
No, but what's
Politics
interesting
Today with Russ and
What's
Chantal.
interesting? What is interesting? No, I understand that. I wouldn't drag you into it. I've never, you know that. I wouldn't. But what is interesting is London requires the tourist industry.
Yeah.
It's a real lifeline for the economics that make London tick.
Indeed.
And if you go online and see how the Americans, for example, are now viewing London, then somewhere between Syria and the Sudan, they're saying, well, we're cancelling, we're not coming.
Okay. Well, I
So
didn't know that. I haven't read those stats, so I wasn't aware of that.
That is, it's not a political statement. It's just that I love this city, born and bred here. It means a lot to me. I don't want to see it going down the toilet.
Well, similarly, I know a lot of Brits in America who are trying to move back because they are finding America too worrying a place and are scared for their children at school.
Would you live there?
No, I wouldn't go back. Not in a million moons. Definitely not. It's not a country I would feel happy in any longer.
I wouldn't go back to New York where I used to live, and I wouldn't go back to California either. I'd pick
Yeah.
somewhere like, I don't know, Montana or Wyoming. I'd pick somewhere that's quiet. I would. I'd pick somewhere that's quiet and beautiful. Mind my own business. That's all I want.
Yeah,
You know.
but Scotland's quiet and beautiful, and Wales is quiet and beautiful.
Well, what?
Listen, we've got to move on, otherwise
All
we're going to
right.
get
No,
stuck in
you're
a
right
rut.
about Scotland. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Okay.
Right. I'm going to give you something to watch so that you can empty your brain of all of this awfulness that is
There's
swirling
nothing in
around.
it anymore. It's completely empty. You have no idea what.
Right. I'm going to send you off to meet the new Vera of television. Okay?
Love
She's a
Vera,
new
yeah.
Vera.
Oh,
She's
is she?
she's a
So,
Swedish Vera.
so she's
No,
like a Vera.
yeah. This is a new series that is on BBC Four. It is from Sweden,
Right.
and it is called End of Summer. And indeed, we are very nearly at the end of summer. It's a
Don't tell me that.
six-parter. No, sorry. So 6 parts is 6 1 hours. So it's perfect for downloading and putting on a plane, which is why I have watched it this very week. It's very good. The lead character, in fact, is a chaotically bonkers, troubled psychotherapist called Vera. And clearly, Vera, yes, you don't become a lead character without a troubled past and a
Of
backstory.
course. Of course.
We know that. But actually, this feels slightly different because we're immediately taken back from 2004, which is where the story is set, back to 1984, so 20 years on, 20 years backwards.
Exactly as I was the flying eye. How bizarre is that?
Indeed. What I'm wondering is if they're going to go forwards to 2024, but I don't know that because I haven't seen the whole series yet.
No.
But you see her working as a psychotherapist in a mental institution in Stockholm, where various men come in to her weekly session. Part of her backstory is that she has had an inappropriate relationship with one of the patients, and she
Ooh.
is trying to redeem herself. I know, a little bit full on, but actually that reminds me, I'm not sure if I've told you the story about when I spent the day in prison in the United States on behalf of a charity that was trying to
Says
create
you.
well,
You.
indeed.
Yeah, right.
But that was run by a woman who was trying to redeem herself because when she had run the same scheme at a prison in, I think it was Texas, had been asked to stand down as the CEO of that particular charity because she was having inappropriate relationships with the inmates. I mean, honestly, you couldn't make this stuff
Holy
up.
God. I noticed the plural there.
Yes, indeed.
Holy moly.
Anyway, so Vera has got a troubled past. You've got to watch it now.
I do.
She's got a troubled past. She had a little brother who disappeared when he was about 5 or 6. That's clearly part of the story. And actually, the opening of the whole thing is a suicide scene. But there are so many
geez. How
many
Swedish
health
is
warnings.
this?
No, there are
is just completely
ton.
Swedish.
No, there are a ton of health warnings all over the screen so that you absolutely know that what you are going to see is a fairly grim suicide scene at the beginning. And that is where the mother of Vera takes her own life. So you've got 2 different strands of stories coming together, and then the past comes back to the present. I'm not going to tell you any more about it
heart
because
emojis suddenly appearing.
what
the hell was that?
Nothing I've done.
Not me.
I don't think so.
Not me. I wouldn't even know how to do it. Trouble switching on a light bulb.
I don't
so
think
weird.
that was me.
Please tell me everybody else saw
anything.
it, or I'm really going mad.
No, I think I saw that, but I haven't touched anything. I haven't got the same equipment I normally have.
Okay.
But anyway, so End of Summer, 6 parts, BBC. Yes, 6 parts, BBC. It's a ripping yarn, and it's definitely worth a sort of a moment or two to take yourself out of the frenzied state you're in and curl up on the sofa.
That would be very good. That would be Paul Claridge. He said, "The Swedish Vera sounds like a fun, light-hearted watch." especially the big dance numbers, Paul. That would be the big Hillary O'Neill giving it some old tap dancing routine. Yeah, it'd be that, wouldn't it? God, right.
Yeah, they are quite serious people, the Swedes.
God Almighty, yes. Yeah, I can confirm I have never laughed in a branch of IKEA ever. So that is it. Although they make fantastic cars, absolutely my favourite cars. So that was. No, Graham, I've beaten you to it. Obviously, it's not. That was too obvious. Too obvious a gag there. Okay, so End of Summer on BBC 4.
BBC 4. Yeah.
BBC 4. Okay, so you can get that on the iPlayer doodad, can't you?
Indeed.
Okay.
So then
can I make a quick recommendation?
Oh,
Am I
yes,
allowed?
please. No, of course you are. It's
You know
your
what I'm
show.
asking you. It's your slot. They've come back with a new series. It's a two-parter of
Yes.
Vienna Blood, which I was crazy about. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Set in about 1909 in Vienna. Please, it looks magnificent. They're an hour and a half each. This is a two-parter. The acting, the camera work, it's just fabulous. You can find it on the iPlayer, called Vienna Blood. You don't actually have to have seen the previous series. It kind of helps, gives you more of a backstory. But it looks magnificent, and I was gripped, absolutely gripped.
I think we talked about it when it first came out, and it came from a book that everybody seemed to be reading about 3 or 4 summers ago.
Yes,
and
called
called strangely Vienna Blood.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
It is.
No, it's not. It is based. It's not. Right, I'm going to find it.
Being wrong. I hate being wrong.
Yeah, says the producer of every top TV show in the world. Right, go on. I'm going to find. Go on. Okay. I'm going to find this. I'm going away from it.
Right, you look it up. Oh my God, he really has gone. I'm going to basically just give us a nice show to remember that, it came on for, when did it first come on? I think 2004. And it was the series called House, which was a marvelous success internationally. I think it was sold in 71 countries. Russ, I don't know if you got that. I think maybe
got all of it. I could hear you.
Oh, you got all that. Okay, well, I'm just checking. Well, House is on Netflix. There are 8 series of House. Clearly, we know, it was wonderfully well put together. I was sort of slightly underwhelmed by the secondary cast, but I think in 2008, it was the most watched television program in the world.
Was it really?
Yeah, absolutely.
I never watched one episode.
You didn't?
No. Medical dramas. I never watched medical dramas.
Yeah. And Hugh Laurie sort of disappeared off British screens for that entire period.
Huge star over there. Massive star. And what I love is the Americans didn't realise he was as English as you can get.
They didn't. It was all made in
by the way, the Lieberman novels by Frank Tallis is what Vienna Blood was based on.
And what was the book called?
The Lieberman novels.
Well, the copy that is sitting in my sitting room
in
London. No, the copy that's sitting in my sitting room in London, down the spine, has Vienna Blood on it.
Well, try cleaning it. What's the matter with you?
This time next week, we're having a rematch on this conversation. In the meantime, there are 8 series of House for you to watch. The reason I mention House is it's good family viewing. If you're suddenly stuck with a family and you think, okay, what can we all watch together that is actually going to be appreciated by everybody and is not going to wind people up, that House is all there. All 8 series are there sitting on Netflix and worth just flicking back to, because he was a great character. He played it incredibly well, and it still stands up even after all those years. It still stands up.
He's a fantastic actor, isn't he, Hugh Laurie?
Yeah, he is. He is.
He's so varied. Do you remember that fan? Well, you met them all. I was terribly jealous. The Night Manager, and you met them all in LA.
I did.
I was like, whoa! Yeah. And he was so really scary in that role.
Yeah.
Ooh.
In a way, he
Yeah.
was sort of wasted on House because he was a sort of cartoon character, really. Because it's an over-exaggerated character in House. I mean, it's good, and he was so much better than everybody else who was in the program, which was always part of my beef with it, really. That he was standout and everybody else was a bit of an also-ran. But anyway, there we are. I didn't produce it. Not my problem, but I was an appreciative watcher.
And there you have showbiz in a nutshell. One sentence. Oh, not my problem. We could still go to the Groucho and order drinks because that wasn't my show.
Oh dear, dear, dear.
And by the way, Chantal didn't produce The Acolyte, which has just been dumped. Thank God, after one disastrous series of utter bullshit. It was just terrible, unwatchable woke trash.
Really?
They dumped it. They've dumped it. Yeah, they've dumped it after series 1.
Oh, okay.
Spent a fortune on it. Fortune.
Oh.
It was unwatchable. It was like
I hate money being badly spent. It drives me nuts.
oh well, this was probably only billions of dollars that they threw at this trash, and everyone's saying this is terrible. Please stop. And of course, the Americans just doubled down, and now they've cancelled it.
Oh dear. Well, if you want a quick true life story, well, that's the sort of mystery, because I got to the end of it and I wasn't sure what was true and what wasn't true. It's a BBC documentary series that is about a young lady called Chloe Ayling. It's called Kidnapped. The story of Chloe Ayling, who was a young woman from the north, 20 years old, who was a model, a glamour model.
She was a model, wasn't she? Yeah.
She was a model. And this story all happened when I was in America, which was why when I watched this series that's just appeared on the BBC, it's a 3-part series, I didn't know anything about it. I'd never heard about it. I didn't know who she was. It had completely passed me by. Basically, in en bref, as the French would say, she is sent by her agent to Italy to do a film shoot. She gets kidnapped, put in a suitcase, put in the back of the car, and driven off into the Italian hills.
Oh dear God.
When she gets back, I mean, the real story is when she gets back, nobody believes her. After 8 days or 6 days, she's delivered to the local consulate, the local British consulate in, I can't remember, one of the northern Italian cities, and then eventually gets back home, and then the press get hold of the story, and then she gives interviews, and then it sort of gets even more mysterious, and you don't know whether she was really kidnapped. Was the kidnapper who said he was the kidnapper who then said he was going to do the right thing by her and let her go? Was that true? Was it not true? It's an extraordinary story.
Very odd.
Yeah, it's a 6-parter, but they're half-hour programs, and the story is still out there. And if that's the sort of thing that you like watching, if only to try and unravel the mystery. It's been made by BBC 3, and it came out about a week ago, or maybe 10 days ago, and it's sitting there on the BBC iPlayer at the moment.
So it's not conclusive. Do they lead you down a path to make a decision, or no?
A decision is reached. That's all I'm going to tell you. But I still came away from it going, something's not quite right here. And I shouldn't, because I am led to believe that the outcome is the true outcome. But I don't know. It's, there are threads still hanging in the air.
If, as my late dad used to say, it smells from herring. I say, what do you think about it? Smells from herring. Yeah. Absolutely. And as you're one of the smartest, brightest, and most knowing, like no, that if you come away going, bit fishy, probably a bit fishy.
Well, it's worth watching just for the sort of interest value. Really, it was an extraordinary story.
Have a wonderful break in La Belle France.
Will.
Okay, don't upset any farmers or anything. A bit touchy.
No, I won't. And next week we'll go on a day trip to France.
I've got to find a passport. Okay. Day trip to France. It'd be bloody marvellous. All right, Chantal, thank you for joining us all the way from France. Bless you. How lovely of her. How fantastic. On her holiday and she still rocks up. I really appreciate it. Well, that's it for another week. We've had some fun. We've had some laughs. We've had some serious stuff. Oh, we've had everything here. A mélange. A potpourri. No, that's a smelling thing, isn't it? Okie dokie. I'll be back on Monday, God willing. Have a wonderful weekend. Don't know what the weather's doing. I think tomorrow's lousy and then Sunday's pretty good. And until we meet again on Monday, try and stay out of trouble. Careful what you post. Bye.